Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, this is one of my favorite parts of this show is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things that for my life I deemed very expensive. I learned the value of it. And so I know that Kerri's time is valuable. And I want to thank her for coming and spending some of it with us here at Threads of Enlightenment. The other is her journey. That journey housed who she was. And she's here to share with us so that we can experience what that, and through that journey, have made her who she is today. And so we're excited about our conversation, for we are about to learn and to grow as individuals here on this planet. Kerri, thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation, Ken. I appreciate it.
It is an honor. I want you to talk to the folks and tell them those things that you serve others with, all of your books, and tell them everything that you have.
Absolutely. So my role in the collective is to be a messenger. And so I am connected with Mother Earth and higher guidance. And my role is to listen to that, to help heal things that are painful, and to transform things into a higher vibratory pattern and understanding. And so my role is to take the information that's being channeled through me and communicate it in such a way that is easy for people to understand. And in the lineage that I am a part of from the Andes Mountains, that is called the Kurekakuyak. And so that's what I'm here to be. It's like they say the mama bird eats the worms and then digests it and then gives it to all the babies in a way that everyone can understand it. And that's not to be condescending, but that's what they say of the Kurekakuyak. That's what they do. They translate information and make it bite-sized. And so that's what I do. I do it in books. I do it through personal experience. Oftentimes my life experience is used as the vehicle for explaining these concepts that everyone can take on in their own lives. Things like forgiveness, very challenging concept to understand. So I share it through my own lived experience of forgiveness with anyone who wants to hear that. So yeah, books and training classes and podcasting, and I do a lot of these interviews. And so usually they have me using my throat chakra a lot. So that's pretty much my main function, as well as doing it from a still place inside. So it's really important for me to be stillness inside as I'm listening, as I'm saying, using my voice to communicate what needs communicating from, these bigger than us forces. So that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Awesome. So invite us to your family. I always like to start with our family because I tell folks that most of the trauma that we experience, the beginnings of it, if you will, you start there. And trauma comes in many different forms. It doesn't have to be this big, momentous thing. It could be simply a mom busy and the kid is trying to get the mom attention, and the mom said, I'm too busy. And the mom is actually busy, maybe doing something, and just doesn't have the time at that time. But that child interprets that as a form of rejection. From that space will begin to make certain judgment and certain perspective now that will guide that child for many years. But introduce us to your family. What was it like while you resided there for the time that you did?
Well, what I will say is that anyone whose calling is human psychology in any way, shape, or form, you've got to go through your own initiation process to understand the shadows of human consciousness. Yeah. And so a lot of these beginning life experiences are to set us up to have a deep understanding of the human psychology and the shadows of that. And so mine was that I had, my mother was a gal from Midwest Texas, from a tiny little town in the oil fields, and with a mom that was Pentecostal Christian and was very devout and, 5 times a week at school, at church and things like that. And then she moved to Dallas, Texas, with a big city, and met my natural father, who was quite a 60s party guy, like, let's swap partners, let's, like, let's swing, let's, all this kind of stuff. So my mom didn't think she could get pregnant, and then she found out she was pregnant with me. Whoops. And she quickly realized I was not the right relationship for having a baby. And he was a very wounded person, from his own traumas. So she moved in with somebody else, and that person ended up being a violent drunk and used to beat her if I was bothering him. So there was a trauma bond formed between my mom and I from a very early age, that if I was being a child, she might get beat up and might even get, killed. So that was very traumatic. And she left that relationship, but it took her about 4 years to get out of that relationship. And then my third father was beautiful man, beautiful, enlightened man, very wonderful father figure. So a lot of healing happened in that relationship, but that doesn't take away the early, that early programming, 0 to 7, your brain is being wired. And so, and a lot of things my mom and I had to heal because of that, which is why my book, the time ago, not this recent one, but the one before, is Love is Fierce, healing the mother wound because of the shadow projections in my mind and in our relationship, and the anger and all of these things that were based in that early time needed clearing. And now the relationship is healed. And I like to tell people, don't give up on your relationships. You can heal those by healing the shadow projections and healing the early wounds and rewiring things. I have a beautiful relationship with my mother now. So I like to encourage people for forgiveness.
Forgiveness is personal growth. You have to learn to forgive yourself and forgive others in order to get past it. And I've had to deal with that myself. And because of some trauma that happened to me as a young man, it is very important to come to that space because, and I tell people, this is not a place of weakness. It's a place of strength. Because people feel as if they're weak when they're there, but no. It's one of the most powerful spaces that one can visit as a human being for themselves and for that relationship that they would like to heal. So here you are as a young girl. You are experiencing different types of trauma and that came into your life. As you are moving through your life as an individual, those trauma that you saw, life-threatening situation that you saw your mom and yourself in, what was happening to you? Right? What was this little girl thinking about as she's seeing all this pain and trauma being leveled at her mom from this relationship?
Well, I was quite the little warrior child. I was defending my mom. I was scared. I was tiny, but I was still trying, to protect my mom. And, and I think that I always loved my mother, and I just, I needed to have some better boundaries for myself. And, this is what I ended up experiencing when I was a teenager, was that I was very wild in my reactions to things, very emotional. I didn't have a really solid beginning to life. So I had some insecure attachment issues and things like that. And so I had to really do a lot of deep dive. And so I was in psychotherapy starting from 15 years old and, starting to get those diagnoses. But that whole trek that took 20 years of my life, weekly psychotherapy, was really an exploration of my shadow consciousness and also an exploration of how to see things differently, how to have a different perspective on things, how to heal my own perspectives to change things and to open up new potentials. And that eventually led to me in my spiritual path. So all of it serves. It's just that it wasn't my destination. It was a piece of my puzzle, and it served well for while I was doing this. But what I learned the most from psychotherapy after looking back over it over 20 years is the impact of the stories we tell in our lives is so huge. Whatever story we tell about our lives and about the events of our lives creates a momentum, creates like a web, like a spider weaving a web, and we become the fly trapped in that web. And so the question is, if if you have a life that you don't like, what story did you weave that created that for yourself? And how could you untangle yourself from that to weave a new web? And that's really the exploration I've been in, is how can I weave webs that are delightful, that are beautiful, that are prosperous, that are respectful and freedom loving, and, and give myself and others that gift. That's mostly what I learned, after leaving psychotherapy, because psychotherapy kind of lets you stay in the story a little too long, and we need to rewrite those stories.
Yeah, it's the change of perspective, and I want to go through some of the tools that you brought into your life to help you to change the stories, because that reel to reel that we play, as you said, that spider web gets more and more intricate, and we kind of find ourselves that we cannot move, and all it is our thoughts, and it's a matter of rewiring one's thought patterns. And as you begin to do those things, it will assist you in moving and stripping away those webs, if you will. So, what tools did you bring into your life, Kerri, as you are in therapy? And I know they talk about some of the tools there, but which one of those tools, as they were saying, mentioning them, you pick personally into your space, and then start to help you rewire your mind, if you will, and create a new story?
It's really funny because from almost the first psychotherapist I had as a young woman, when I entered the workforce, she told me, you might want to go get some meditation. And she told me about this school where you could go and this meditation class and do a grounding meditations. And I went, and it was fantastic. And I didn't keep with it. But then lo and behold, 20 years later, when I actually went on my spiritual path, that's one of the primary tools, is grounding meditation. And I think, wow, if I'd only listened to that sooner, but that's the way it goes, right? Sometimes. But grounding is important because, especially if you're an emotional processor, this is one other aspect I'll introduce, is that we all have a unique human design, and that is so important to know. But when you're an emotional processor, you need a deep grounding cord, because it's kind of like there's a lot of emotion wanting to pass through you. And it's like an electricity in a house. If you don't have a grounding wire in a house and the electricity is coming in, the house is going to explode. So the same thing, if you don't have a grounding wire and you got a lot of emotion moving through you, you're going to explode. And that's what happened to me over and over and over again, until I finally realized that grounding meditation thing. Now, there's something useful there. We need to do that grounding thing. So that's one of the tools, Ken.
Yeah, I've never heard in my entire life, especially in this personal growth and personal development journey that we all get on, that the first time we were introduced to something, that it is, we grab onto it and hold on to it forever. All of us always grab onto it for a little while, but we're still hooked up. We still are learning, and it. And I try to stress this point: you will never, ever, ever, ever lose anything in this life. All of it, at the end, all of it does matter, and it does fit. You may not see it at this time, but trust me, all of it does fit. And it is a great way by which it is weaved together. After many years, you'll look back and go, wow, and you started incorporating this. So now here you are, you're doing all of these things. Where did you steer to when you were going to, let's say, college age now? Did you go to college, or did you went another path? This young girl that's exposed to all of these different types of trauma, and her way of acting to people with very emotional and so forth. What path did you take?
it's a strange path I took because I went to college. I did really well in college. I went to Smith College, which is like an Ivy League school, and it was a really good school, and I was very grateful to go there. It was a very feminist college, and it taught me to be strong, taught me to believe in myself as a woman, taught me to, get out there and you can do anything. And then I ended up getting a job in Silicon Valley as a high tech technical writer, communicator. So I did this for about 20 years, first as an employee and then as a consultant. But the interesting thing about that choice is that here I am, a very emotional, tender person, and I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of logical, non-emotional people. That was an interesting challenge, because the corporate environment and, with a bunch of not emotional people doesn't really want anybody emotional. And so I had a lot of times at work where I was wanting to cry and my boss was like, Kerri, here's what I do. I just look up. I look up because if you look up, you can't be crying. And I'm like, oh, because people were so mean. They would just say horrible things. And it hurt my feelings, so, I got my early lesson in don't take anything personally, which is one of the 4 agreements, which ended up being a manual for my life, that I wish I had gotten in 3rd grade, because, if I hadn't been taking it personally, I would have realized that this man who is, coming here to work on technology from, India is not respecting women in general because it's not part of his culture to respect women. And he's coming here and he's being disrespectful towards me. Right. And my feelings are getting hurt because I'm not used to being treated that way. But it wasn't really about me. It was really his perspective. It wasn't anything to do with me. It was him facing his own edge. But I took it on, as if it was, and I felt disrespected. And so it was a good training ground for me to start to realize that there were people from around the world that thought about things very, very differently than I did, and maybe thought that women shouldn't be, in roles of power, and were confronted by coming to the United States where women are emerging into their power. So it was a very interesting training ground for me for 20 years.
Wow, that's a great space to learn that lesson. It's a powerful lesson though, Kerri, because how not to take things personal is the key, I think, to many of our pain. In my life, this is one lesson I've embarked on in the last couple of months, is especially that, dealing with that aspect. And I started investigating the times that I got hurt. And I realized every single time that I got hurt was because I was taking things personally. And so now learning to give others the space to make decisions based whatever perception they have, not to let it come into my space to dislodge me from mine. And it's a powerful lesson to learn because in there is lots of peace. So here you are, you're going through college, you're now working with the Silicon Valley folks, and they are not as emotional as you. And you're getting to experience these beautiful conversations with the different culture, because I am very familiar with that culture and how they feel towards women. So as this began to work on you in this space when you were looking up, what was some of those thoughts that was going through your mind as you were dealing with these type of emotional less people than you are? How did you manage that, Kerri?
Yeah, so I actually went to a lot of psychotherapy, and I was taking a lot of those not feeling pills, and I was also having a baby. So as soon as I had a baby, this was when I was 30. So I was in high tech from 22 years old in Silicon Valley for probably until 33 when we moved to Texas. And that whole time, I was grappling with, that this idea that how I was not acceptable to my environment. And I had to try to change myself in order to fit in. And that I needed to do it for my job, to keep my job. So I had to change me in order to be acceptable over here. Meanwhile, at 30, having a baby and having this motherhood initiation and all of my early childhood coming up for me to witness, and that the old feelings and the scaring and all of these things, because that's what happens when a woman is initiated into motherhood. All of these old things come to the surface because we're purging things so that we can have a better space for our child. And, this is one thing that Western culture misses, is initiation for all people, all genders. But for women, it's important. We should be initiated when we have our period first, and we should be initiated when we have motherhood. And so I went through a very dark depression for a while as my first baby was born, and it was very challenging, and he was very colicky. And so the two of us were very much unhappy with life for a while. And I did a lot of art. And so I had space for doing more artwork. I always loved to express myself through artwork and painting and being outdoors in nature and drawing nature and the environment. And so I spent a lot more time outside creating artwork and expressing myself and opening my heart and connecting with nature. And, and that became a form of meditation that helped me to be more calm and centered in myself and take care of this little baby that was dependent on me, for me to be steady. And also I had a nanny come and help while I was doing my high tech stuff. So I gave myself support. I gave myself the resources and the support I needed to be present for this little baby, also to give myself some meditation and some time with nature. And I got through it. And then, about 3 years of that, we moved to Texas, and I stopped doing high tech work about a couple years after that, and found this other path, into being a spiritual mentor, which I never ever thought I would ever be. I had no idea that was in the cards for me, none whatsoever. Never saw myself that way and didn't have any clue about it. Felt like, gosh, I'm the least trained person for this. And then here it was right in front of me. You're going to be a healer. You're going to be a mentor. I mean, did you pick the right person? Are you sure you know who you're talking to? But that's what my spirit had in store for me.
Yeah, none of us know. I think some of us maybe we have glimpses, but very few of us know to the degree until. I tell people, just get your until so that it'll move you through. Is finding your passion and become passionate about it. I would tell people. So here is this young woman. I mean, she is going through a tremendous amount of, I want to say, learning, because you're learning from different ways. And if you guys were listening, Kerri had mentioned that painting and being in nature, different things, was her form of meditation at that time. And I tell people meditation takes many, many different forms. You have the classical meditation, but meditation comes, find it. I don't care how you find it for you. Find it for you. It could be anything, and use it. Meditation simply means that you're allowing your thoughts to slow down. You are now becoming a designer. You're becoming picky, if you will, about the thoughts that you're allowing into your life and into your being, because they bear fruit, guys. They will bear fruit. That's what the thoughts does. And so how you use it is all up. So here you are, your mom, and there's nothing like having a child in your life to start make you start focusing. So here you are, you move, kid is, you have a child coming in, and you move, and you're this high-tech woman in this profession for so many years. What happened, Kerri? What happened? How in the world did you make that swing from the high tech to where you are now? What happened?
Well, I loved the art so much that I didn't want to do any more high tech. And my husband at the time was really dismayed by that because he liked the money I was bringing in. And we decided it was too much stress to live in Silicon Valley. It's very stressful to live there because you have to earn so much money in order to have a home and pay for everything, and school and everything is costing a lot of money. And the whole culture there is based on working really hard and making a lot of money. And that's the whole focus. And I said, I am so angry right now at life. I don't want to live this way. I can't stand it. And my husband had been asking me for years, can we just leave this place? Because it's really stressful and it's making you stressed out. And we're in a family part of our life now. We don't need to be here. And so I said, okay, finally. And so we moved to Texas where my parents were living. And my dad had been a technology guy. He was working at Dell and all of this, and he retired. So they were retired. They had a nice place and were very retired and were there and wanting to be grandparents. And so we moved really close to them. And that put me back at my mother wound because this was unhealed at the time, because my mom and I had not healed our relationship. And so I was right in the throes of all of my darkest things that I needed to face within myself. Being a mother, being depressed, being on not feeling pills, being discouraged about life, not wanting to do the same career, being back with my mom and my dad, who was wonderful. I always had a great relationship with my dad, but my mom, and provoking me and everything. And then she was able to see the quality of my marriage, of course, which she had a lot of opinions about, because I wasn't standing up for myself. I wasn't being that strong Smith woman. I was being the woman that's getting my nails done for hours on end and trying to look pretty and kind of being a Barbie. And I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop myself. So all of this was going on, and it just kind of hit a crescendo. And the crescendo happened, and what happened was my Shakti got loose, and I started having my Kundalini awakening. And in that moment, I decided the only thing that mattered was my pleasure, and everything else could just take a back seat, which kind of destroyed my marriage because I was getting in a really powerful place within myself that previously was suppressed. And that shifted the power dynamics, it shifted a lot of things, and he was not able to go along with me there. And I personally was so angry. I felt like I was calling in Kali Ma. I didn't even know who Kali Ma was in this lifetime, but I was like, Kali Ma, I need your help. And she just came in and just whoosh, like everything got destroyed. So that was pretty much what I did. And then I set out on the journey, and I had many spirit synchronistic signs and came along to me and said, you need to pull yourself out of this disrespect you're doing to yourself. And I started pulling myself out of my own disrespect and started claiming my power. And that was, pretty soon I realized I think I'm a spiritual mentor somewhere along the line here, because I was so impressed with all the ones I kept meeting. I said, I think I want to be this. And then I started becoming it. So that's pretty much the short story about how that all happened.
Yeah, those short stories are always packed with a lot of information. So here you are. You just gave to us the short version of that. Talk to us of some of those challenges, because that's what it is. It's those stories with those challenges. And what were some of those challenges, Kerri, and how did you get out of those challenges? Because that's what it is. It's just different types of challenges that are presenting before us, and we have to learn how to navigate through it. We learn how to bring in wisdom that is inside. A lot of times that it's just sitting there and it's inaccessible to us until the dark times, because we don't need it. We're, like you said, you're making your money, you're living good, you don't need it. You're just partying. You're enjoying that aspect of your life. But then when it gets difficult, you have to go in. You got to go in when it's quiet, when the dark and the light is off and you're laying there by yourself. You got to start excavating things that you see your mom. Being in that space is going to surely tug at because that needs to be dealt with. Now, when you started feeling those things that need to be dealt with,
Yeah, well, I like to say that, the more light that comes in, the more the shadows are revealed. Yeah. And so a lot of light started coming in because of my Kundalini awakening. And I was like, wait a second, there's pleasure available. And that pleasure started telling me, I'm no longer satisfied with how this life is going. Like there's another option here. There's more potential. And I don't want to struggle and suffer and be, heavy and burdened. And I don't like that. That sucks. And I want something else. And so that really showed me how unsatisfied I actually really was in my life. But I was forcing myself to do a lot of things out of a sense of obligation or responsibility or my role or my commitments I had made or all of that. That was very heavy and burdensome, and it wasn't actually making me happy. And I started realizing I wasn't actually happy. And I was having nightmares at night because I'm such a loyal person. It was very hard for me to make the decision to leave. I will be loyal until it hurts so bad I almost want to die. And that's what happened. It hurt so bad I wanted to die. And I said, I just can't do this anymore. Like, this is not making me happy. And I need to leave. It's not good for the boys. I had 2 sons now. It wasn't good for my boys to see this kind of relationship. I wanted them to see the kind of relationship of mutual respect, of spiritual connection, of personal responsibility, of 2 adults that work together to create a home with, transparent conversation. There was a lot of things I had experienced growing up with my dad and my mom together in their partnership that I wanted to emulate for my children. And I wasn't able to do it from that relationship, although I had tried for decades to make that so. And so I was like, well, I'm going to have to leave, because I want my boys to experience the kind of relationship that I experienced. I want them to have the benefit of that while they're young and they're in their sort of data bank as an option, and so I made the difficult decision to leave, which is a sacrifice. And I think that a big part of any spiritual journey is a sacrifice. You've got to eventually sacrifice the thing you're holding on to materially and emotionally as your source of safety that is actually killing you. You've got to say, this is very toxic for me and I need to leave this thing, even though I think I need it and I'm terrified to let it go. I have to let it go because there's another source of sustenance that's waiting for me that is far more nurturing, far more profound and deep and wise. And that was my wake up call. Is like, I cannot commit suicide and leave my children with no mother. And I get to take the journey to become the person that attracts the partnership that I want my kids to have a witness of. I have to become that person. And so that's the journey. I left everything behind, and it was hard because we had built me an art studio and I was going to be a painter, and I had to let it go. I'm not going to do that. I need to leave. It was like the golden cage, it's like, here's your art studio, the thing you always said you wanted. Here it is. No, I gotta go. So it was hard. It was hard to leave.
Yeah, it's always hard. I think it takes a degree of courage to embark on a personal journey. I was at the same space as you, and I've said this before, telling my journey. Some information about me is that I was going through the same thing, and I remember coming home from one area to another, and I remember thinking that I could make the marriage work, but I would have to die. And I remember, Kerri, taking this information and meditating on it as to what does that look like to die. And I knew that my personality, how I am, all of it, I would have to kill that in order to make this marriage work. And I tell the testimony all the time that I was on the highway, Kerri. I pulled my car off on the highway on the bank and started yelling and screaming at the top of my voice that I'm not going to die. And that's how I had that particular incident gave me the courage that I needed to do, because at the time I had my 4 boys. So all of that stuff was dancing in my mind, and would cause me, that responsibility causes us to stay in hell for a long time, and which I did. So here you are, you decided to part ways and you're now going on your own journey because you're beginning to become awakened to you. When you moved and you began this new life, what was happening to Kerri there? Was she in her mind, in her soul, in her being? Where was she when she moved away?
I was in my desire. So I left and immediately I got a place to live. Secretly, I arranged all this stuff because I didn't know how he was going to react. I think I was having a lot of fear from my childhood about, dangerous men. He was never dangerous. He never did anything. So I was grateful. But when I went into my new place, I immediately felt at peace. Like that's the first thing I felt was peace. It was like, wow, I'm not being provoked all the time. I'm not being told I'm wrong all the time. I'm just going to go ahead and be myself and see what that looks like for a while. And for a while, I had a bunch of men on text and they were telling me how wonderful I was and I was soaking it up and I was drinking a lot of wine and having nice bubble baths and just pampering myself for a while and having some time out and some quiet time. And I didn't talk to anybody. And I really liked that because I hadn't really had enough quiet time for a long time. And so having that, my own space without having somebody there constantly pecking at me, telling me I needed to do something or I don't know, there was just a real weird relationship there. So I had this freedom. I was like, wow, I'm free. And, and then I started being curious about what's next. And I started going to yoga because, a friend of mine said, I like yoga. Would you like to try it? And I said, okay. And I started moving my body in yoga and it felt really good. And it felt normal. I remembered it somehow. And I thought, okay, I like this. And then this one yoga teacher said he was a spiritual mentor. And I said, all right, I don't know what that is, but let me try it. And he talked to me and he became my mentor. And then a little while after that, I started getting interested in shamanism. And I found some information somehow. My first teacher in shamanism, I found him. And I started going to this class, the quest for authenticity, because I said, I want that. I want authenticity. I want myself. I want to know what's really me. And I started that journey and I got the 4 Agreements book and I read that book 40 times front to back because every single time I start to try to do it, I would mess up again. So I read it again because I was like, you didn't get it. You don't understand. So that was the beginning of my journey, and it led to amazing places. I mean, I studied with incredible teachers. I studied with a protege of Don Miguel Ruiz, Heather Ashmar, beautiful feminine empowerment teacher. I studied with the 4 Winds. I learned energy medicine. I became an energy medicine practitioner. I didn't even know what that was. I had no idea that shamans existed. All this stuff I didn't know. And my journey opened up. And you said something at the beginning of the show, somewhere along the line, about how things just, when you get on the right path, things just start to open up. And it's like amazing. It's like this buffet of miracles. It's like the miracle today is this. Then the next day, oh, now I have this miracle. And then I get to learn about this. And it's amazing. Everything that opened up, I didn't ever know in this lifetime. Of course, I probably have a lot of other lifetimes I know about it, but I didn't know about it in this lifetime. So it was all brand new, which brings me back to beginner's mind because, the reason why that part of the journey is so exciting is because you're learning it again for the first time. And then after you wake up and you learn it for the first time, now you've got to let it go again. So the dying thing keeps happening, I found out.
Well, it's a part of the journey that I remember my mentor had told me about the death of the dream, the dying aspect of it. And I remember he took me and he showed me a scripture where Jesus said that the seed dies in order to bring life. And he told me it is a principle that cannot be, it is a part of the existence of all. And he said that place right there, you have to learn how to be in tune with yourself. He said, it is the place where you pull away and everything around you seems like it's all gone. That is just as important and even more so than anything else. It is there a time for you to become, you're giving birth at that space right there. And remember, that's a dark place to be, and a difficult place to be, but it has to happen. So here you are, just getting everything. You're drinking up everything, Kerri. You know, everything that's coming your way, you're just snatching it. So where in all of this getting did you begin to circle back to your grounding meditation practice? Where or it's a part of you at this point, or were you still just grabbing everything and assimilating into yourself?
Yeah. So when I met Heather Ash, actually, I guess before that, we practiced shamanic meditation, which is really becoming aware of all your senses. And, shamanism is really about the experience. It's about experiencing life. And so everything is an experience. So it's about staying awake to the experience, staying awake to your senses, staying awake to your environment, staying awake to your perceptions. And so it's a lot of awakeness. And it is an interesting way to walk through life. And I would say Hummingbird came to me as in a vision, in a shamanic drum journey vision, because my brain was very busy, as you mentioned, and a lot of people in the United States especially have busy brains. And my brain was very chattery and loud. And it was hard to hear the inner voice because there was a rock concert of like metote going on in my head. Metote means, the many voices. And so when I did shamanic drum journey, it would slow it down, because it would recalibrate. It would put me in the trance. And in the trance, I could be still. And I remember I was doing a drum journey trying to get this house that I'm in right now. But there had been many offers on this house. And my real estate agent said, no, you're not going to get that house. I said, no, that's my house. So I took a drum journey and I imagined, being in this house and having guests over and being here with, my grandparents who are deceased coming in the house and saying, we love this house. This is perfect for you. And just all of this I was imagining, forcibly imagining. And then at the end of the vision, this hummingbird rose up through the kitchen window in my vision in rainbow light and just hung there, and time stopped. And I went, oh, I didn't make that happen. And then the phone rang and the real estate agent said, it's amazing, but that deal just fell through. Would you like to put an offer in on the house? I said, give them whatever they want. And I took on the name Kerri Hummingbird because I thought that is spirit. I never had a feeling and an experience like that before. Time stopping. And I'm still intrigued. Hummingbird is the master at stillness and motion. And so that's what I'm practicing in this life, is being stillness and motion, because we can't go to the mountain anymore. That whole like be on the mountain for like decades to get, no, it's like do it in life, like right here, right now. Do it while washing the dishes. Do it while, taking the dog for a walk. Do it while having a conversation here. Do it in process, in motion. And Bruce Lee says this is the big thing, right? Like when you can be stillness in motion, then you get it, right? So a lot of us are practicing being stillness in motion, in the motion of life.
It's a great place when you have that awareness of it. And I love your story, and it shows one of the most powerful forces available to the human spirit, the imagination. The imagination, when you began to see it from that perspective, when you began to imagine it, if you will, I believe you're pulling within that next realm, that next dimension, and you're pulling this energy in and creating what you want. And it is in our ability to do it. And the imagination is one that is very important. You've heard people say to create a vision board. And the purpose of the vision board is to activate one's imagination so that you can begin to manifest the things that you want to happen in your life. And it is possible. It's been done. I've done it before. I mean, everyone has the same ability. It's just a lot of people, Kerri, don't believe that they have that ability. And if you don't believe it, it will never happen. But when you start practicing it, you will get it. And I tell people, start with little things. Little things. Don't, start practicing your imagination with little things until you get to the place where you're confident enough to go after the big boys that you. So here you are. You made this 300 and I don't know, let's say 60 instead of 380. You made this big switch, and you're now pursuing all the things of the realm of the spirit, and you're learning much. As you're learning all of these things, you're manifesting stuff into your space now. How in the world, Kerri, did you end up writing books and stuff like that now and pursuing the path that you're on today? How did you end up there? Because here's this woman from the tech world is now doing drum circles, and the folks in the tech world will look at you and say you have lost your mind. They're probably looking around and go, "What happened to our dear friend?" So talk to us as you are now in this space. How did you navigate to your world of today?
Yeah. So in terms of the books, the first one came in right as I met my first shamanic teacher, and I heard her voice and it said, "You're going to write a book. You're going to document your journey." And it said, "You're going to chart the course out of madness." I thought, I'm going to chart the course out of madness. That sounds very interesting. I would like to do that. And so I started writing the book, and I had no idea how long it was going to take to chart the course out of madness and how I was going to love myself. But that was the intention of the first book, was awakening to me one woman's journey to self-love. And so I said, I'm going to love myself. And so I documented my journey, and readers have told me, "Oh my goodness, Kerri, this book is like a haunted house. Every single time you go back into a relationship that's ill-fated and you date some new guy who's not worthy of you." It's like, don't do it. Don't do it. And the reader is like, "Please don't go back there again." And then I go anyway. And so, it's one of those books you just go, "Oh, she's going to do the pattern again. There she goes. She's doing it again." So it's very transparent. It's written in the moment, and it's very, it's a great book for anybody, especially who's been diagnosed, one of these crazy labels. It's a helpful book, to help you chart your own course out of madness. And so that one was released in 2014, and it immediately got an award. So that was great. I was like, wow, I wrote a first book and it got an award. And in college, I wanted to be a literary journalist. That's what I wanted to do. And this was literary journalism. So I was finally using my writing skills to do something I wanted to do. So, and then after that, I wrote From We to Me, which is, I had a lot of lessons I learned post divorce and dating at 40. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about that, and so it's a little bit more expository, it's just kind of sharing some things I realized. And for anybody who's, trying to recover after a divorce and painful family split. So that came up, but then I didn't really, I was just on my journey. I was studying with my teachers, and I was studying with Heather Ashamara. I was apprenticing with her. I was studying with the Four Winds and Alberto Vialdo. Is really wonderful shamanic teachings from the Andes Mountains and the Caro people. And it's starting to really change my mindset about things and my life. And I was doing a lot of prayer practice, which they call despacho, just prayer offerings to Mother Earth and Spirit. And I was expanding my realization about a lot of things during that time. And I was stepping into being a healer, and I was putting my shingle up. I'm a shamanic healer if you'd like to come and have a shamanic healing, and practicing with a lot of people. And then 2019, this voice says, "You're going to write a book." I was like, I haven't heard this voice in a while. I was like, okay. Oh, I said, "What's the book?" And it says, "The Second Wave." I said, "What the heck is that? I can't write it if I don't know what it is." It says, "You know what it is? Go look at Dolores Cannon and go look at her work and look it up on YouTube." So I looked it up, saw the short video on the 3 waves of volunteers, and I said, "Okay, I understand." And it's really about Dolores Cannon is a beautiful, beautiful soul for anybody who doesn't know her, and she did a lifetime of service of helping people access their deep subconscious soul self and in soul retrieval of past life experiences. And she realized when people were down in hypnosis like that deep, that they could access their soul, and she could ask a lot of questions. And a lot of these people's souls were saying, "I'm part of the first wave," or "I'm part of the second wave." And she didn't know what that was either. So she started documenting it and asking more questions. And what she found out is that we have a lot of volunteers to the planet from other places, at this time of the Great Awakening. And apparently I was part of that. So I said, okay, I did not know that either. And this is what spirit does, is that you keep finding out things that seem more and more preposterous about yourself. And yet it is true. If you follow it and you just lean into it, it's like, well, I didn't make that up. So it must be true. It's preposterous, but it must be true because there's no way I could have thought of that myself. So that's how I figure out that it's for real. And yeah, my people follow me from Silicon Valley and they go, "I'm pretty sure she's lost her mind, but look at her meteoric rise." Because all of my books are bestsellers. That Second Wave book's been on the chart now for 202 weeks internationally. I didn't pay for that. I don't have a publisher. So I think they just sit back and they go, "This is preposterous." And I say, yes, it totally is. But I keep saying yes to it, and my life keeps improving. So it's a miracle. And I say yes to miracles. And, and so then the Love is Fierce book with Healing the Mother Wound with my mom came out. That was a very difficult book, very hard book, a lot of deep inner work on that one. It took me 3 years of lots of plant medicine ceremonies and a whole lot of other stuff. And yeah, that was hard. But it was worth it. Great relationship with my mom now. And then the last book is Inner Medicine, Becoming One with Mother Earth. And that's really this last book, I would say Love is Fierce was a pivot into caring about another person enough to dedicate myself for 3 years to heal what needed to be healed so I could be in love with my mother. That was an act of devotion. But Love is Fierce and this new book, Inner Medicine, is an act of devotion for Mother Earth now. So it's like the service is increasing, like you talked about. Because when you start opening up your life and you start realizing the force that's guiding everything, the love that's infused in everything, and your heart, putting your heart in devotion to it, you want to be in the greatest service you can possibly be in. And for me at this time, I feel like that's encouraging people to love Mother Earth, to love this planet, to take care of the animals and the plants, to become one with all of life. And because we already are, in truth, one with all of life. It's just that we forgot. And so I think that's my greatest service, is to get out here and do messages and have conversations to wake people up to that. And to remember that the earth is always listening. She's our body. We're her. She's us. We are her body. She's listening. We're not alone. We have all the guidance we need if we listen inside.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And everyone that has been listening to this conversation, guys, I am so glad, Shane, because you're getting to see the different aspect of healing with mom, healing with herself, healing with the planet, healing with people. There's so much stuff that we all need healing. And you have to make sure that you get on the path. I love the title, the craziness. And that's just us. We're just absolutely nuts. And we need to look at a book like that and help us to navigate through our craziness, because I think we're all a little challenged in many ways. But the crazier you are, in the sense that where you begin to trust your instinct, trust your journey, as they say, and become a servant. That's what this journey is all about. And personal growth and development and all these things that we go through is to become a servant. There is no higher service on this planet but that. Once we learn to love ourselves and we've gone through all of those things, the gift I always say to people that we get as a result of all of that is to serve. And it's a wonderful gift because, like Kerri's trying to tell you guys, it is a days of miracles all over the place, and you're just sometimes they come so fast and frequent that you're like, whoa. You sit down and you go, wow, that was a really interesting day. What just happened? And even we have to sit down and decipher what just happened because we sign up for it, but it's really a fun place, and we just encourage you guys to get here really quick. So here you are, Kerri, you're delivering, giving birth to all these wonderful books and so forth, and you've dealt with all of these different modalities and reaching to the human spirit. Invite us into one of those conversations that you're having with someone that you're there, and they have been circular, if you will. They haven't made that decision yet that, no, I want more out of life than this. When you're having those conversations, invite us into one of those when they are beginning to, as you said earlier, the light begins to come in and they begin to respond, and you are getting to enjoy one of the most precious voyeurism act that is available to the human spirit on this planet. Talk to us, invite us to one of those beautiful transformation, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one student in particular who's has struggled with receiving prosperity, and has struggled with feeling victimized by life, like a victimization. And to step into empowerment has been a big journey, and there's been a lot of self-judgment and tearing oneself down with mistakes and all of this for years now. And recently, kind of hit an apex, it hit a little crescendo. And in that moment, I said, oh, I understand. This is too much for you. I understand. And I just accepted it. And in that moment, she came back and she said, no, I was being victim again. I see this. Oh my gosh, I see this now. And it's like the light bulb finally went off, and she accepted some help, which is getting her a full-time job, that she'll have some money coming in the door. And the look on her face now is like the sun just rose. It's like, I see what I was doing. Oh, now I can open the door to so much more prosperity. Oh, wow, the world is helping me. Oh, I'm constantly being supported and helped. I don't have to keep struggling. Oh my goodness. It's like she's finally reached this oasis where she can say yes. And this has been years in the making, because some of these patterns are sticky, as you know, and it takes a little few times around the wheel to, when I say the wheel, I mean the medicine wheel. It takes a few times around the directions, the south, the west, the north, and east to get it. And she finally is there. And it's like, it's such a relief, because once you really get it like that, you're not going back there. You're done with that part. It's like, no, I'm in freedom now. Yeah, I'm in freedom, and I'm my own creator in my own life. And that's the part she's at now. And it's very exciting to see what she's going to create. So yeah, I feel like, whew, like that's awesome. I celebrate it. Yeah. And I cherish those moments because, there's other moments where the person kind of backs away from the challenge, right? Like retreats from the challenge. And there's nothing you can do as a mentor to really bring somebody to face a challenge inside themselves that they don't want to face. And sometimes, as a mentor, that hurts when they back away from the challenge. It's like, I see them, they're like this close. It's like right here. It's right here. And I keep telling them, you're right here. You're right here. You're almost there. But then they back away sometimes. So as a mentor, we get to guide and we get to accept everything that happens, and total acceptance, total embracing. And this is part of the journey, and is a sacred journey. So even the backing away is a part of the sacred dance. Even that is it's a message with the divine. It's all beautiful. So I embrace all of it. I mean, I love the successes where they get forward into freedom. And also I honor this retreating too, because this also is part of that sacredness of the union, with the divine. It's all beautiful.
Yeah, all of it is that beautiful symphony of sound and music and life and energy. It is life. It is. And so I love the fact that it is. And you have to come to the space of this young woman where she retreated, but then she realized, wait a minute, and that light came in. And the other folk is sometimes they are not there yet. I was there. I came to that place 3 times when we did. And then, but, the plan is already set for us.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting there. And sometimes it'll take a couple of years, and then they'll call you back in and say, after such and such, I was doing this, and all that you talked about made sense. And you're looking at them going, wow. So
yeah.
It all plays in the dance. So anyone that is listening to this beautiful conversation with Kerri, she mentioned many of her books. I want you guys, I'm going to provide all of those stuff for you guys, the websites. I want you to buy these books, give it to your friends, give it to those folks that are having a challenging relationship issue with mom or with a friend or with a daughter. Give it to family so that you can mend this relationship. This was one of the very first things that Kerri mentioned when we started this journey, was that relationships, do not give up on them. If you want to make it happen, you can. And he wrote about all of that. You can extract from that, the pages that are there, the truth and insights that you need in order to get it. For those that want to get to her, to chat with her, I'm going to provide all of that. Get into her space, learn from her, come energized by talking and engaging with her so that you can change your world, change your perspective, and move from one energy level to another. Kerri, I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. I've really enjoyed our synergy and our conversation, and I truly desire from the bottom of my heart that this touches the lives of many people and brings unity and harmony.
I know.